me that I'm good enough. Talking about good, think about shit that I shouldn't know. So I tell him it's one of me. He making fun of me. His girl is a bum to me. Like that boy is a cap. Saying he home, but I know where he at.
I get a lot of comments on why I crochet funny, and the answer is it's probably because I started knitting first. I started knitting at around 7 years old and I didn't learn how to crochet until I was about 13. I find holding the hook like this prevents wrist pain because I don't rely on twisting my wrists as much. Instead, I just pass the hook to the other hand. There are no rules on how to hold your hook. There's a lot of craft magazines from the 19th century that recommend different ways to hold your hook. So historically, there's never been a right or wrong way. At the end of the day, it's whatever you're comfortable with.
De la noche en La Habana, Cuba.
11 de la noche en San Salvador, El Salvador.
11 de la noche en Managua, Nicaragua. Me gustan los aviones.
Tutorial on the ruched mesh top. Start by chaining from one side of your chest to the other. Make sure the chain is pulled tight when measuring. Chain 2 extra and half double crochet in the third chain along. Repeat half double crochets until the end on the row. Once at the end of the chain, chain 2 extra and half double crochet into the top loops of the underneath row. Repeat this until the top covers your boobs. Once at the right length, chain to flip your work and chain 1 extra. Double crochet into the second underneath loops and chain 1. Repeat this double crochet into second underneath loops and chain 1. At the end of that row, chain to flip your work, chain 1 extra and double crochet into the underneath double crochet to create a straight line with the row underneath. Repeat chain 1 double crochet into underneath row until the right length. To do the straps and lace up the back will be out soon.
If you see a crochet pattern like this and you're immediately paralyzed, don't freak out, I'm here to help. Let's go over crochet symbols. Loops represent chains, dots are slip stitches, a lowercase t or x is a single crochet, an uppercase T is a half double crochet, and an uppercase T with 1 slash is a double crochet. These are treble crochet and half treble crochet in the UK. 2 slashes is a treble crochet and 3 would be a double treble crochet. Now this is typically how symbols show decrease in crochet. This would be a single crochet 2 together, single crochet 3 together. They can do it with any number of stitches and any type of stitch. So example, half double crochet 2 together is just 2 half double crochet symbols together. DC 2 together, DC 3 together, treble crochet 2 together, etc. Now, once you know these basic symbols, they can be combined into pretty advanced stitch patterns. So let's look at what some of those are. So for example, let's show a cluster stitch. This would be a double crochet cluster, which is 3 double crochets. This would be a half double crochet because there are no slashes. So a 3 double crochet cluster and a 3 half double crochet cluster would look the same, except that the half double doesn't have the slashes of the double crochet stitch symbol. Now these ones look pretty crazy, but this is just a popcorn stitch, which once you've done it, you've got a pretty good idea of what it is. But it's just 5 double crochets in one stitch, which creates the popcorn stitch. Sometimes those 5 double crochets are drawn separately, and this would be a 5 double crochet shell stitch, which is one of my favorite stitches. Now sometimes crochet symbols can look pretty out there like this one and this one. These are just our ways of drawing front post double crochets and back post double crochets. And before I forget, let's talk about front loop and back loops. So a front loop is a smiley face and a back loop is a frown. And this means you're working in the front loops only or the back loops only. And these are typically written underneath the stitch that they go with. So if I were to do a single crochet in back loops only or a half double crochet in front loops only, this is what they would look like. Now let's see what it looks like if we were to actually draw out a pattern. So we start with a foundation chain, and then we're putting single crochets in each chain around. And you can see there are increases in some chains by drawing multiple stitches into the same stitch from the previous row. Now we're drawing a row of half double crochets with increases in a few single crochets, for example, so that would be an oval. Some patterns are written out in a straight line. This is common for a lot of lace-like patterns. So for example, this one would be a shell stitch pattern. This is what it would look like if it were drawn out. Now let's look at a real pattern and see how we can break it down. This isn't my pattern, this is just one I found on Google. So we can see in this pattern that we start with 6 chains, and then we chain 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're working treble crochets into the chains. And it looks like there's about 3 treble crochets in each chain all the way around. Sometimes it's hard to tell with these patterns when they're typed out exactly which stitch they want it to go in. So make sure you're looking closely, but you'll be able to figure it out. So that one is a treble crochet all the way around. Then we're doing a chain 5, single crochet, chain 5, single crochet. We're skipping over that treble crochet in the middle, and it won't look like this when you do the row, but it will when you work the next row. So then we're doing slip stitch and a chain 3, single crochet, then we're chaining 5 again, single crochet, and this is just showing you exactly where the stitches are going to fall. Then we're working a treble crochet cluster stitch. This is 4. So instead of a 3, which is pretty common for a cluster, this is working 4 treble crochets in one stitch to create a cluster. Then we're doing a chain 2, treble crochet, chain 2, cluster, chain 2, treble, chain 2, cluster, all the way around. And then on the next row, you would work a single crochet. You can see here the chain 1 and single crochet, chain, single crochet, chain, etc. So as you're working with these symbols and becoming familiar with them, patterns like this get a lot easier to decipher. If you have questions or are still struggling, let me know in the comments.
Here's a tutorial for how I made that green crochet jumper. So you want to start off by measuring the length from one shoulder to another. Mine was 15 inches, so I just slip stitched up to 15 inches. Then you want to crochet 9 and then count backwards, and on the 10th stitch you want to double crochet into that one. So here I found 10th stitch, double crochet in, and then you're going to want to crochet 3 more. So one, hang on, here's a loop, 1, 2, 3, and then you want to double crochet, so miss out 3, and on the 4th one double crochet into that one, and basically just keep going along the whole row. When you get to the end, if you have like 4 or 5, it doesn't really matter, like here, just crochet 3 and double crochet into the last one, it doesn't make a difference. Then you're going to want to crochet 6 up to start your next row, and double crochet into the hole, not the stitches this time. So here you can see double crochet in, and basically just keep going along the whole row, and you want to keep doing this for your front panel, so just keep doing it to however long you want your front panel to be. I want mine quite short because it is a shrug, so I think I did 7 rows. So here we have the front panel, and here I've marked out where I want my neck hole to be, so I've left 2 holes on one side, 3 holes on the other, and you're going to want to crochet 6 again and double crochet into the first 2 holes like normal. Obviously if yours is longer and you want your neckline a bit more, just add more holes either side, but just make sure it's like 2, 3, 3, 4, however many you're stitching into, and then however many holes are in between where you're stitching the neckline. So I had 8, times that by 4, so I slip stitched 32 here to make that row, and then carried on with the mesh pattern on the other side. Then you want to just continue crocheting into the mesh holes, and then where you've got the line, I counted 4 stitches and then just crocheted into the row, and do the same thing to create the back panel, make sure it's even, and then slip stitch the 2 corners to make the hole for your sleeve. And then you basically want to crochet up 9 and then double crochet that into the first hole, and this is how you're making a new row. But you're just going to keep going round and round and round, and just keep going until your sleeve is a desired length. So here you can see I'm just going round, and I slip stitch into the hole on the other side to connect the rows, and you just keep going to make a sleeve like this.
I don't sleep enough without you, and I can't eat enough without you. If you don't speak, does that mean we're through? Don't like sneaky shit that you do.
How to crochet a granny square. This is the method that I use, and it gives you a nice seamless look, and it should prevent it twisting as you work across the rounds. This will be in US terms. So firstly you want to make your slip knot, and then we are going to chain 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to slip stitch into that very first chain to create a little circle, a little loop. You can use the magic loop for this if you prefer. I just find this a little bit more secure. And we're going to work our first round into that hole there. So to start, we're going to chain 2, and that is going to count as our first stitch, and then we want to 2 double crochets into that circle. So here is our first one, and then our second one. So that gives us a group of 3 stitches, which becomes the first side of the square. And then we're going to do a corner, so chain 2, and then we're going to do 3 more double crochets into that circle. So there's 1 and 2, and you can crochet over the little tail, that's fine, and 3, and then we're on to another corner, so we're going to chain 2 again, and then 3 more double crochets into that loop. So this will be our third side for our square, and then we want another corner, so we're going to chain 2, and then the final set of 3 double crochets in the circle to give us the final side of our square. And then for our final corner we want to chain 2, and then we're going to slip stitch into the top of the chains that we did at the very beginning. There we go. So as you can see, we've got 4 corners, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then on each side we have got 1 group of 3 double crochets. For the next round, round 2, we're going to have 2 groups on each side. So I'll show you what I mean. We're going to turn our work, we're going to slip stitch into that space, and then we want 1 group of 3 in this chain space, and we'll do another one in the next chain space in a second. So we're going to chain 2, do 2 double crochets into that same space. That's our first group for this side, and then we're going to move to the next chain space and do 3 double crochets in there. There's 1, there's 2, and there's 3. And remember, we're on round 2, so we know we've got 2 groups, which means we've come to our corner. So we're going to chain 2, and whenever we chain 2, we know it's a corner, we know that our next set is going to share the same space as the set we just did. So 3 double crochets in that same space, and that's how we create the corner. And then we go into the next chain space. There's 1, 2, and 3, and again, if we look, since our last corner we've got 2 groups of 3, and this is round 2, so we know we're at a corner, so we're going to chain 2, and again we know that means that our next group of 3 goes in the same chain space. So 1 and 2 and 3, and then we move over to the next space and do 3 more double crochets. And of course we've got 2 groups again because we're on round 2, so we're our next corner. So we chain 2 and 3 double crochets again in that same space because we are in a corner. There we go, and then on to our next space, 3 double crochets in there, and this is our last one. There is the third one, so let's have a quick look. So as you can see, each side has 2 groups and then a corner, 2 groups and then a corner, 2 groups and then a corner, 2 groups, so we've just got our final corner to do. So chain 2, and we're going to slip stitch into the top of the original chain 2. And actually you can use a stitch marker when you do that chain 2 at the beginning of the row so that you know where you're joining to, if it makes it a bit easier for you. So we slip stitch into there. So now we're on to round 3. We're going to turn our work and we're going to slip stitch into that space like we did last time. And because we're on round 3, we know we're going to want 3 groups of 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, on each side. So we're going to chain 2, 2 double crochets into that same space. That is our first group for this side. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. And then into the next space. At this point we can kind of see it's a corner anyway, so counting the groups of stitches is handy for the first few rounds, just to make sure you get the corners in the right place. So there you go, 1, 2, 3 groups, so we know we're at a corner. We're going to chain 2, and again we know that we want the next one in that same space because we've just done a corner. There we go. And then we want 3 double crochet in the next space. You're probably getting the idea now. And then 3 double crochet into the next space, which will be our third set of 3. And of course we're on round 3, so we know that is the final one before our next corner. So chain 2. And again, in that same space, we do 3 double crochets because we are at a corner. And then 3 double crochets in that next space. I'm going a bit quicker because you're probably getting the idea now. And then 3 double crochet in the next space. Again, we are on round 3. So we know that this being our third one since the last corner, 1, 2, 3, we are at our next corner. So chain 2, 3 double crochet in the same space because it is a corner. There we go, 3 double crochet in that next space. There we go, and 3 double crochet in that final space. Again, you can add a stitch marker at the beginning of the round when you do that chain 2, just in case you want to see it easier. And there we go. Let's chain 2, slip stitch to that beginning chain, and let's have another quick look. So we have got 3 groups and then a corner, 3 groups and then a corner, another 3 corner, another 3 corner, and that is because it's round 3. I'm going to do one more round and then show you. So that was round 4. I'm just going to fasten off and then snip my yarn. There we go. So as you can see, for round 4 we had 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of 3 double crochet and then a corner, and that is basically how you work it up. So for round 5 you would have 5 groups on each side and then chain 2 for the corners. Round 6 you would have 6 groups and so on. And you can either make lots of little granny squares and sew them together to make a blanket, cardigan, whatever you like, or keep going round and round and round, building it up to make a nice big blanket. So there it is, that is how I make my granny.
The most ruthless people on the internet are people that do crochet tutorials. Because they hold no prisoners, they have zero mercy. They're like, first row, you're going to do 20, HDC, LBC, HTE, LTE. Next row, you're going to do 30, HDC, EGT, BC, LEF.
To make those rainbows in my mind. When I think of you sometime, I wanna spend some time with you. Just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the
This is another thing no one tells you about crochet before you start, is that, and before you start crochet, you really need to sit down and ask yourself, do I know how to count? And more importantly, am I ready to confront the answer to that question being no?
This Not That Amigurumi edition. Instead of cheap metal hooks, go for the ergonomic set. More expensive, but worth the price. You'll crochet faster and without pain. Instead of counting stitches on paper, get a row counter. It's fun to use, and the click is super satisfying. Instead of stitch markers or safety pins, keep a piece of yarn and thread it into where your rows start. You won't have to stop and reposition your markers anymore.
you.